All right, so we're out here with Odin, and there's a lot of noise out here, built-in distractions. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on some leash work skills. Good. With him, because I feel like that's gonna be our biggest area of concern. Good boy. Good boy. So I'm kind of doing a lot of things. So we're going to talk about the leash skills, but what I'm also doing is pairing distractions with food from me. And that's going to be a big one for him because he is a very keyed up kind of guy. He's got like kind of edging on anxiety at certain points. So one of the things we're going to really focus on in the program for him over the next 5 weeks is coping with exciting things and learning how to self-regulate through that, and coping skills for settling. He does have sometimes of a hard time settling in if there's any kind of distractions or if we move away. So those are things that we're going to work on, and as well as the leash work, as right, he gets out on the leash and he's just kind of like a butterfly on a string. He's everywhere. So ideally what we want to do is think about the leash being an extension of how we communicate with him versus this thing that just tethers him from the rest of the world. So anytime he hits the end of the leash and there's leash pressure, I want to start doing something about that. I never ever want him to gain momentum towards what he wants to get to by being on a tight leash. That's rule number one. So if he's in his harness, that is the exception, because while he's learning these leash skills, we're going to need a way to get him out and about. And he's going to need to learn, he's going to need to build duration and build up to being able to walk longer distances or around heavy distractions like coming up to the studio. So in those cases, the harness is fine. I don't mind if dogs pull in the harness, but if he's on a leash and collar, we're definitely going to make sure that he never gets successful at pulling towards what he wants to go to. So one of the things that we can have you practice is, is going out with him on leash. You can start him off on the harness until you get to where you want to go. But starting off in a parking lot where there's some distractions in the distance and you can kind of be in control of how close or far you are to those distractions. And you're going to practice the human end of the leash skills, which is holding the leash and making sure that we're doing what we call yielding to leash. So I'm going to come up here real quick. So right here, yeah. Every time he hits the end of the leash, I'm going to kind of pull and let go until he's on a nice loose leash like this. So it's okay for him to, if he's not in heel, it's okay for him to be here and when we're walking and it's just loose leash walking and not heeling. I might follow him, he might follow me. He doesn't have to necessarily be at my side, but he can't pull. And so with a heel, so right there where he kind of pulled to get to that puddle, I'm just going to pull and let go until he's on a nice loose leash again. So you can't pull me to get to where you want to go is basically the gist. Another way to set this up is and I'm not sure if this will work with how distracting it is out here, but we'll see. I'm going to put a little pile of food on the ground over here. I've got my leash ready because he's going to probably want to get to that, right? So there's that food. Oh yeah, he's wanting to get to that, right? So I'm going to back him up over here and pulling and letting go, pulling and letting go, pulling and letting go. Good. And I'm going to just move that leash up a little bit higher up on his neck so it's not hitting his trachea. So one thing I'm noticing with how hard he hits the leash, you may be inclined to introduce a prong collar for a short amount of time, because what that's going to do is it's going to teach him not to hit the end of the leash so hard, and it's going to allow us to use wrist and like fingertip movements on the leash versus full arm and full shoulder movements, which ultimately he's learned to kind of fight through, and he's hitting the end of that leash so hard he's like hacking and it's hitting his trachea, etc. So a prong collar is really good mitigation tool to teach him not to pull so hard and to listen to that pressure. And with how we use pressure with the leash, there's no popping or hard corrections with that. It's just a gentle pressure on and a release of pressure afterwards. So that food is over there. If I start to walk towards it and he lunges, I'm going to pull and let go, pull and let go, pull and let go. Good. Pull and let go. And now he's on a nice loose leash. I'm going to call him back over to me. So we're going to play this game. And it's not necessarily, it's almost going to look like he needs to heel to get over there. But what I'm really after is a loose leash. So if I can walk, I want to get about 3 feet away from that pile of food, which you probably can't see on the video screen. But I'm going to see if I can get about 3 feet away from that pile of food on a loose leash. And if I can, I'm going to release him to go eat that food. If he lunges, I'm going to use an active release, which is that pull and let go until he's on a nice loose leash. And then we're going to back up and reset. So I'm going to get him started here. We're going to walk towards that food. We have a nice loose leash. This looks good. So right about there, I stopped about a little further than 3 feet away and he went to lunge. So we're going to back up. When he lunged, I used that active release. Great, so we're about 3 feet away. He lunged. I'm gonna pull and let go. Good. He's on a nice loose leash. We're gonna back up again. And I'll do the next rep of this with the food towards the camera so we can so right here, pull and let go. Good. Nice loose leash. I'm gonna stop about 3 feet away. Very nice, okay. Good boy, nice. All right, let's set this up again with the food closer to the camera so that we're walking towards you so you can see what's happening. I just have to make sure that I put it in actual camera view here where my feet are. I think that's a good spot. So I'm going to move him away. Food is here, but it's helpful if you see where it is. Oh, no. There we go. Perfect. Pull and let go, pull and let go, pull and let go. Good. Nice and sweet. Perfect. I'm going to get him kind of started. Doesn't have to be on my side, but that's helpful. I'm going to start walking towards that food. As soon as I kind of see him start to get out in front of me, I'm going to assume that he's going to start to lunge. So that's when I'm going to stop walking towards the food. Good. Nope. And basically stopping far enough away to where if he lunged to the end of the leash, he's not going to be successful at eating that food. Good. Loose leash. Good. Okay. Beautiful. He needs a lot of setups like this so for instance, right now we're using so again, while I'm talking, he's finding the end of his leash. I just want to make sure it's loose. He's not, when we're on, and this is what I was mentioning for the human end of the leash, maybe you go out into a parking lot and just work on holding the leash and making sure that he's not hitting the end of it. He just needs practice being on leash and finding where the end of it is and yielding to it. So right here, boom, loose leash. When we're on leash, it should be loose 99.999% of the time. And the only time you feel pressure is when you need to change or fix something. So that's going to be like the concept that, yep, every time he kind of goes towards something that he wants, he's just learned to kind of muscle through that. I think a prong is going to be helpful because he has such a strong reinforcement history of pulling towards things to get to what he wants. And he's also at the point now where he could potentially hurt himself or possibly you if he's pulling that hard. So that's going to be helpful for him for that. So for that setup where the food was, and we were loose leash walking up to the food can be anything that he wants to get to. It could be his friends on the other side of the fence and he's wanting to get to that. So the food just kind of represents anything that he's trying to get closer to while he's on a leash. You could try that with a toy, but food is a good place to start because the food doesn't move around or bark or get excited. And so obviously that's going to be how we accelerate that lesson. We start to use things that are a little bit more enticing or more exciting. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. He's doing really good. We're going to practice that a little bit more today, but good job. Good job, Odin.